Every morning at exactly 7:15 a.m. old beggar appeared outside the Grand Central Hotel. Nobody knew his name or where he lived. He wore a torn brown coat, held an old metal cup, and strangely he rarely asked anyone for money. He simply watched. Until one morning, as Daniel Carter, a wealthy businessman, walked toward his blank luxury car, the beggar suddenly called out, "Don't get into that car!" Daniel stopped. "What did you say?" I said, "Don't get into the black car." Daniel laughed. "You are a beggar. What could you possibly know about my car?" But something about the man's voice made Daniel hesitate. Instead of taking his car, he called a taxi. 20 minutes later, he received a shocking phone call. His driver had been found unconscious, and his black car had crashed into a concrete barrier. Daniel's face went pale. For the first time, he wondered, who was that beggar? Who was that beggar? The next morning, Daniel returned. The beggar was sitting beneath the same street lamp. "You saved my life," Daniel said. The old man shook his head. "No, you saved yourself." Daniel offered him money, but the beggar refused. "I don't want your money. I want 5 minutes of your time." Inside a nearby cafe, the beggar leaned toward Daniel. "Your company has a traitor." Daniel froze. "Someone close to you is stealing from you." "How do you know?" The beggar pulled a small black notebook from his coat. Inside were dates, amounts, names, and bank transfers. Daniel recognized them immediately. "These are confidential company records." "Where did you get them?" The beggar simply replied, "That is the question you should be asking." Daniel investigated. Soon his accountants discovered that millions of dollars had disappeared through dozens of transactions. Everyone had been approved by the same man, Michael, Daniel's childhood friend and most trusted employee. Daniel confronted him. Michael initially denied everything, but when Daniel showed him the evidence, Michael finally whispered, "I didn't steal the money for myself." "Then where did it go?" Michael looked at him. "Your father." Daniel froze. "My father died 12 years ago." "I know," Michael said. "That is why you need to find the beggar." That night, Daniel returned to the street lamp. At 3:15 in the morning, the beggar finally appeared. "What did Michael mean?" Daniel demanded. The old man looked at him. "Your father left you his fortune, but he never left you the truth." Then he pulled an old photograph from his pocket. Daniel looked at it. His father was standing beside a young man. The young man was the beggar. "You knew my father?" The old man's eyes filled with tears. "I was his best friend. His name was Thomas." 20 years earlier, Thomas and Daniel's father had started a small business together. They had nothing but a dream. They became rich, but success changed Daniel's father. When they discovered corruption inside the company, Thomas wanted to expose it. Daniel's father wanted to hide it. Soon Thomas was blamed for the fraud. He lost his business, his home, his reputation, and eventually his family. Everyone believed he was a thief, but he was not. The real criminal was their business partner, who had secretly manipulated the company's accounts. Thomas became homeless. For 20 years, he lived on the streets while collecting evidence that could prove his innocence. But nobody would listen to a beggar. So he waited for Daniel. And when Michael discovered the same corruption years later, Thomas finally had enough evidence to reveal the truth. Daniel stared at Thomas. Why didn't you tell me before? Thomas answered, because you were not ready to lose your money. Daniel didn't understand. Thomas smiled. Sometimes you must lose the illusion of wealth before you understand the meaning of success. The next morning, Daniel called a press conference. He revealed everything: the corruption, Thomas's innocence, his father's mistakes, and his own failure to see the truth. The corrupt executives were arrested, but Daniel did something nobody expected. He sold most of his personal assets and built a foundation for homeless people. He called it the Second Chance Foundation. Its purpose was simple: a shelter, a meal, a second chance. Daniel offered Thomas the first permanent position. Thomas smiled. I don't need charity. Then what do you need? Daniel asked. Thomas looked at the new foundation. A job. Daniel smiled. You are hired. 5 years later, thousands of homeless people had found jobs, homes, and hope through the foundation. One morning, Daniel found Thomas sitting at the entrance with his old metal cup. You still have that? Thomas smiled. It reminds me of who I used to be. Daniel sat beside him. What did that man teach you? Thomas looked at the people entering the foundation. That being poor is not the worst thing that can happen to someone. What is? Thomas answered quietly. Having wealth and still having nothing worth living for. Then he added, success is not measured by how high you climb. It is measured by how many people you helped while climbing. Years later, after Thomas passed away, Daniel placed his old metal cup inside a glass case at the foundation. Underneath it, he wrote, he came to the city as a beggar and left it as a legend. The lesson: never judge someone by what they have. The person everyone ignores may be carrying the truth everyone else has forgotten. Money can buy comfort, power can open doors, but true success is when your struggle becomes someone else's hope. This is Lines and Lessons, where every story leaves a line and every line leaves a lesson. Subscribe our channel for more videos. Thank you.